with James Gunn's Superman coming right around the corner, for me it's going to be next Tuesday. For the general audiences, it's going to be Friday, July 11th. I thought it would be a good idea to do a recap of all the Superman movies made in history, which would be about, like, I think 6 of them, because there's the 4 Christopher Reeve movies, then there's Superman Returns and Man of Steel. So that's going to be 6 movies. I'm going to do a review. I'm going to try to at least do a review of all of them before I see James Gunn's Superman. And yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Superman the movie from 1979. Thank you for clicking on another McCritic video. I'm Nolan. Full spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the movie in the first 40 some years it's been out. So the film stars Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent Superman, and he is an alien from an extinct planet of Krypton. He starts life on Earth after Ma and Pa Kent raise Clark, aka Superman. He moves to Metropolis and starts a life working for the Daily Planet. Here, Clark meets Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, played by Margot Kidder and Mark McClure. One night, when leaving the Daily Planet, Clark notices that Lois is hanging off the edge of a building after a helicopter malfunction. This is where Clark embraces his alien roots and turns into Superman. For the first time in public, he puts on the Superman suit. He saves Lois, and we get a montage of Superman saving people. From here, we meet Lex Luthor, the villain of the movie. Luthor's plan is to sink the west coast of America, doing so by sending missiles to sink everything west of the San Andreas Fault. It's a crazy plan and something that is very super villainy, very Lex Luthor-y, but that's his plan, is to sink everything west of the West Coast. And then he wants to use his real estates to it's very Elon Musky. It's a weird plot that he does. Anyways, while doing so, Lex Luthor is sending out missiles to sink the West Coast, and by doing so, he creates an earthquake that ends up killing Lois Lane in one of her cars. Well, not one of her cars, her car. She's in her car, it falls into the earthquake fault line, and she dies. Superman is so outraged when he finds Lois's dead body that he flies at super speeds, fast enough to travel backwards in time. In doing so, he prevents Lois's death and prevents Luthor from sending all those bombs and creating the earthquake that killed Lois, and he sends Luthor to prison. That is a basic outline of Superman the movie from 1979. I thought the plot of this movie was pretty solid. I think it secures basically every grounds element you're going to need in a Superman movie. It's got a nice balance of the Daily Planet and his life as Clark, and also has not as much of a balanced Superman life, but I think that because this is the very first movie, it's okay. It has everything that a good Superman adaptation needs, and it delivers on every plot line. Not one plot line is weaker than the rest. Some have less time and aren't fleshed out as much, like what I was talking about earlier, but I think everything that is fleshed out is pretty solid and isn't weak. One thing that kind of irked me about this film was the pacing. It has a very long exposition in this movie, and Superman doesn't put on his uniform until probably about an hour and a half in, which isn't really a problem because I like seeing Clark grow up, but there was the first 20 minutes of this movie were taking place on Krypton, and because of how insignificant that is to the rest of the movie, I think that kind of took a long time, and it just felt kind of weird because it obviously was the very first Superman movie, so in doing that, while they're trying to get general audiences hooked on Superman, they spend, I feel like, way too long of a time trying to get people hooked on the planet of Krypton, which is just going to end up leading to its demise, and audiences won't see it again. The pace eventually does speed up, and you ride that high horse probably until the end of the movie. It's good. It doesn't drag the film down too much because you can look past the exposition, because once that gets through, it's a nice, steady, treading plot for the rest of the film. The conflict between Superman and Lex Luthor was something that was obviously going to happen because Lex Luthor Superman are enemies, and I think it was done well, but it could have been done better. Superman doesn't really fight in this movie, whereas he's just more focused on saving people. And I think there could have been a cool fight in this movie. Not necessarily between Lex Luthor, because Lex Luthor is just a regular guy that's very wealthy in this movie. But just a fight between Superman and someone would have been cool, instead of Superman just saving people for the amount of time he's on screen. Nothing too big, because Superman does show off his powers and it does look very cool, but it could be worked on, and I hope to see that improve in future movies. I personally haven't seen all the Christopher Reeve movies, so this is my first time watching. So yeah, you guys are gonna know what I'm thinking of them in real time as I watch them. Another thing about Superman is something amazing that I thought was done really well was Christopher Reeve's characterization of the difference between Clark Kent and Superman personas. The way that he differentiated the two was amazing. He knew exactly how to play Clark Kent. He knew exactly how to play Superman, almost as if it was two separate characters in separate movies. Clark Kent was the nerdy journalist working for the Daily Planet who had a slouch, and he wasn't very social. He had a comb-over haircut and wore glasses. And his voice is even, like, less intense. And when Christopher Reeve decides, well, not when he decides, when he switches over to the role of Superman, he's perched up, he's got, his hair is completely different, obviously, and he just seems like almost a completely different character. He's more lit up, and you can tell by the way he acts, the way he talks, just his expressions in general. It's very awesome that an actor like Christopher Reeve can differentiate the two in such a way that they feel like different characters, even though as an audience you know it's the same character. I really thought that was cool, and it was a really good strength that this movie had. Reeve did a really good job at making Clark Kent a lovable nerd and someone who doesn't have a big social life, while at the same time making Superman a lovable hero of the Earth, and those two were just drastically different characters, even though it's the same person. I thought Christopher Reeve did a great job at playing Clark Kent and Superman, and I look forward to watching him in the next 3 movies that he stars in. Next, I want to talk about the cinematography and the visual effects of this film. Obviously, this film was made when they did not have CGI available. So, given that, the flying scenes, I'm just going to say, were horrible. They couldn't really do anything about that, but it did not look good. I'm not going to take points off because obviously they couldn't do anything about that. There was not technology available to them at the time to actually be able to make the flying scenes look good. But for what they were okay. The flying scenes are probably the worst part to look at just because you know it's so fake, but that's okay. The cinematography, besides that, is done very well, and the practical effects that they used in this movie were good. You could tell the Fortress of Solitude when that was being built, and the kryptonite that they used in this movie, the little pieces of kryptonite, those were all practical pieces, and it looked really good, especially the cinematography, the way that they were shot. Like, when the Fortress of Solitude was being built, it was just shots of the ice emerging, and it wasn't necessarily Superman looking at it, which I thought was really cool because the way that they made it look practical and just that shot of the fortress being built was really cool and captured the attention of the viewer, and I was very engaged in looking at this fortress made out of ice up north. And another standout to me besides the fortress was when Superman was flying with Lois in one of the scenes. Superman had just done an interview with Lois, and then he picks her up and flies with her. It looked really cool. It was probably one of the best flying scenes just because it was more focused on showing Superman carrying Lois rather than the two of them flying, or rather than the background of them actually flying. I thought that was really cool, and overall, this was a great adaptation to show Superman on the big screen and bring him into the light of film rather than comic books. This film scores 4 out of 5 stars for me, and I look forward to reviewing Superman 2, 3, 4, Superman Returns, and Man of Steel. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below what you want to see next from me. And thank you for watching another McCritic video. Check out my Jurassic World Rebirth review that had just been posted. And yeah, thanks for watching.